गौरांगे रामधुन लीलाय जार कन्ने प्रवेशिला
Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chukshushanmilidam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pracharane Nirvisheshashanavadi Praschata Deshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Se Advaita Gadadha Shivasdi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We're reading from the Sri Caitanya Bhagavat by Srila Vrindavan Thakur. Srila Vrindavan Thakur is the incarnation of Srila Vyasadeva. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the author of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, writes that Krishna Lila Bhagavate Kohe Bed Vyas Chaitanya Lila Vyas Vrindavan Das. Krishna Lila Bhagavate Kohoi Bed Vyas, that Vyas Muni, he describes Krishna Lila in Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Lila Vyas Vrindavan Das. And that same Vyas Muni, he appears here in Navadip Dham, in the Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Srila Vrindavan Thakur. Srila Vrindavan Thakur, he appeared at the subsequent generation after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's manifest pastimes here in Navadip Dham. He is the son of Narayani, who received the special mercy, the special kripa of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Prem Bhakti in the house of Srivas Thakur, bestowed upon her prema when she was 4 years old. So she grew up 20 years later. Mahaprabhu would almost at the time of leaving his manifest pastimes on this planet, that's when Vrindavan Thakur appeared here in Navadip Dham in Mamgachi. And that Vyas Muni, in the form of Vrindavan Thakur, he's beautifully described the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And by hearing these pastimes, we can cultivate our love for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Srila Narottam Das Thakur sings, Shri Gauda Modhu Lila Jar Karne Praveshila, the sweet pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, those whose ears, Jar Karne Praveshila, those whose ears these pastimes enter into, Hridoy Nirmal Bhelotar, the heart becomes completely purified. We're reading from the Adi Khanda. This is the 5th chapter, text number 3. So at this time, Shachinandan, Sri Gaudhari, is very young. It's in the section, according to Krishnadas Kaviraj, he's divided the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Adi Khanda, into 4 different sections. And we'll be discussing those in these sessions. And this is the first category. It's called the Baal Lila. Mahaprabhu is from the time of his appearance to 5 years old. So at this time Mahaprabhu is very young, 3-4 years old, and at home in the house of Jagannath Mishra. And let us hear these beautiful descriptions of Srila Vrindavan Thakur. This is text number 3. Ekdin daki bole Mishra Purandar Amar Pushtak Ano Bap Bishambar. In the same way that Nanda Dulal performed pastimes in Brajabhumi, Sri Shachinandan performs pastimes in Navadip Dham. So when Nanda Baba called for Nanda Dulal to bring his chopal, and he came running with his shoes on his head, they were Vaishyas in the village. And here Jagannath Mishra, he's Bipra Bar, the best of the Brahmins. And he calls Sachinandan to bring his book, Ekdin Daki. He calls Boli Mishra Purandar. Amar Pushtak Ano. Pushtak means book or scripture. Amar Pushtak Ano. You bring my book, Bap Bishambar. So, hearing his father's words, Shachidulal became very joyful. They were in the home, and then he ran into the appropriate room and he got the book and he brought it to Jagannath Mishra. as he was running to get the book and bring it, Jagannath Mishra noticed an astonishing phenomena. Mishra bole, kotai shuni nupur dhoni, chatur dikhe chai dui brahmun brahmuni. Mishra bole, kotai shuni nupur dhoni. Where am I? Mishra bole, Jagannath Mishra says, kotai shuni nupur dhoni. How is it I'm hearing the sound of ankle bells? Nupur. Dhoni, the sound of ankle bells. Kotai shuni, where is the sound coming from? Our child is not wearing ankle bells. Chotur dike chai dui brahman brahmani, in all directions. Chatur dike. Brahman brahmani, Jagannath Mishra and Sachi Mata were looking. How is the sound of ankle bells heard? Ki adbhut, astonishing, adbhut. Adbhut, astonishing. Here we are, we're sitting just looking at the Adbhut Mandir. So, ki adbhut, dui jone mone mone gone, botchan nashpure, dui jone bodane. They were so astonished that botchan nashpure, there was no sound able to come from their mouths. They were completely stunned at this. Then another extraordinary phenomena. Shab grihe deke, oparupa padda chinna, dvaja braja ankusha pataka adi binna binna. He saw shab grihe throughout the entire cottage, home, padda, the oparupa padda chinna, extraordinary footprints, padda chinna. We understand at that time, 500 years ago, here in Bengal Bhumi, Bengal, all through Bharat Bhumi, India, people were living in clay cottages. They weren't living in brick homes. And the floors, still if you travel in villages in Bengal and other places in Bharat Bhumi, you'll see people living in clay cottages. And the floor is made of mati, earth, and sometimes some whatever other materials are available. Sometimes the trees also, they're growing trees, they build a house around that. So the footprints were visible throughout the entire Shobgrihe deke, Aparupa Padata, extraordinary footprints, upon which he saw Dvaja, Braja, Ankusha, Patakadi, Binna Binna. So these are the flag, the Dvaja means a flag, the Braja, the thunderbolts, the Ankusha is the instrument which is used for controlling elephants, Ankusha, and Patakadi, Pataka, banners. These are the symbols that are visible on the lotus feet, the soles of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So seeing these footprints all throughout the cottage, they were completely astonished. And they became, as you could imagine, first of all, you're hearing the sound of the ankle bells throughout the house, and no one's wearing ankle bells. And then you're seeing the footprints with the signs of it's beautiful. Could you imagine footprints like that? The soles of your feet with those beautiful images and designs. And the imprints were throughout the entire home. So naturally they were overwhelmed with ecstasy, spiritual ecstasy. Pada podda deki. Duha kore namaskar. Duha bole nishtaraimo janma nahi ar. Pada podda deki, seeing those lotus foot imprints. Pada podda deki. Duhe kore namaskar. They paid obeisances. Namaskar. They bowed down and paid obeisances to those footprints on the floor. Duha bole. And they said, Nishtaraimu janma nahi. We will be delivered. We will be delivered. Nishtaraimu janma nahi ar. We will not take birth again. Just consider, Bhakta Vrinda, the extraordinary significance of this statement of Jagannath Mishra. Later we'll hear, in a later chapter, chapter 8, we'll hear the departure of Jagannath Mishra. And Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur comments, actually Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his purport, he comments that the body of Jagannath Mishra is completely spiritual. It's an eternal body. And he departed in that same form. He's eternally manifest in that form, as the pastimes of Satchinandan in Navadip are eternally manifest. Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash. Mahaprabhu ordered the Goswamis, Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash. These pastimes which are eternally being performed can become manifest by the grace of the great Acharyas. And Kaviraj Goswami, he explains that Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anna. That Caitanya Mahaprabhu is nothing else than nothing. He's nothing more than he's simply Radha Krishna. Nahi Anna. Anna means another thing. Nahi Anna. He's nothing else. He is Radha Krishna. So as the pastimes of Radha and Krishna are nitya, they're eternally being performed. So similarly, the pastimes of Satchinandan, Sachidulal, and Navadip are eternally being performed, and the participants in those pastimes are also eternal. So he's a liberated soul, he's a perfect being, but he's thinking that he's a conditioned soul. Nishtaraimu will be delivered, Janma nahi ar, we will not take birth again. So he doesn't think that he's a liberated soul. He doesn't think that he's the eternal Father of the Lord and he appears in different incarnations as Nanda Maharaj, as Jagannath Mishra, Dashara Shuta. He doesn't think that I'm an eternal being and eternally associated with the Lord and I appear in his various pastimes. He forgets that. Now, this is Jogamaya Shakti, so that he can fully perform the Leela and serve the Lord as his Father. And not thinking that, hey, you're God and I'm your Father. And no, he's thinking that he's a simple, conditioned soul, and Satchinandan is his son. This theme will regularly reiterate in the pastimes, specifically these Bhalrup, Bhal-lila pastimes. One time in a dream, a Brahmin appeared before Jagannath Mishra and said that your son is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no point in you educating him or chastising him. He's on the level of Lord Narayan. And in the dream, Jagannath Mishra replied, Mishra bole, Deb Shidhi Muni Keni Noi, Jay She Bodo Hok Matro Ama Tanoi. Deb Shidhi Muni, he may be a great rishi, he may be a perfect being, he may be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Deb Shidhi Muni Keni Noi, why not? Jai She Bodo Hok, no matter how extraordinary he is, Matro Ama Tanoi, as far as I'm concerned, he's my son, and I have to give him an education. So this actually is Braja Prem, as Mahaprabhu explains to Srila Rupa Goswami in the Rupshikha section of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 19. Kebal Shuddha Prem, Arsharja Na Jane, Arsharja Dekliya Nija Shambhanda Shemane. In the Kebal Prem of Vrindavan, which is Aisharja Na Jane, which is devoid of the conception that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Aisharja Na Jane, Aisharja Dekleo, even when Krishna displays his opulence as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Nija Shambhanda Shemane, they are simply constantly thinking of their intimate familiar relationship with him, and the opulence that Krishna occasionally displays as the Supreme Lord doesn't disturb that. And similarly here in Navadip, Mahaprabhu is displaying opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sound of Nupur, even though he's not wearing ankle bells, and his imprints are displaying the special, unique designs which are only seen on the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Jagannath Mishra is not thinking that my son is God. He's thinking he's a conditioned soul, and somehow he's getting special mercy of the Lord, of the deity in the home, and so special that we must be liberated as a result of this and not take birth again. Mishra bole, Shuno, Vishwarupe Janani, Grita Param Anna Randaha Apani. He requests Vishwarupe Janani, mother of Vishwarup. This is also a principle of Vedic society, Vedic culture. He refers to his own wife as mother of Vishwarup, Vishwarup Janani. Why is that? Because relationships are so important in Vedic culture. In Vaishnav culture, everything is about relationships. Relationships with the devotees, relationships with the Lord. That is the essence of life. Tarera charana shebi bhaktu shone bash. Janame hoy e abilash. Srila Narottam Das Thakur prays that my desire, abhilash, my desire is that Tadero Charanashebi, those who are engaged in the service of the 6 Goswamis, Bhakta Shanebash, I desire to sit with them, to reside with them, Janame Janami Hoy, life after life. Because relationships are everything in devotional life. So, Vishwarupa Janani, O mother of Vishwarup, Grita Paramanna Randaha, Apani, you please cook a special preparation of Grita Paramanna. Grita Paramanna means ghee, sweet rice cooked in ghee. You please cook it. Tomorrow we'll do a special abhishek of the Shalagram Shila of Panchagavya. Jagannath Mishra is planning to perform a special abhishek of his deities with Panchagavya, with the 5 items, auspicious items from the cow, the milk, yogurt, ghee, dung and gomutra, go urine. These 5 items are used to worship the deity on a special occasion. Actually here in Navadip Dham, our Sri Chandradaya Mandir, Lord Nrsingadev every day is worshipped with the Panchagavya Abhishek. And you can sponsor that if you like. Get special mercy of Lord Nrsingadev. So Jagannath Mishra comments to Sachimata that I believe the sound of the ankle bells coming from the deity who's coming down from the altar and moving around the house. So tomorrow we'll perform a special abhishek and worship the deity because the deity is showing us so much mercy. This is Vaishnav life. This is Vaishnav Grihastha life. Everything is centered around worship of the family deity, and a special occasion means a special abhishek and a special worship and puja of the deity, and special items are cooked and special pujas are performed. E morte dui jone paramahari she Shalagram puja kore. Prabhu mone hashe. They are worshipping Shalagram Shila in the house of Jagannath Mishra. They're Brahmins. And whilst worshipping Dui Jone Paramaharishe, they are experiencing great joy as they were performing the Abhishek the next day. And Sachinandan was also sitting there with his father, and he was watching, and he was experiencing great joy. Even though they didn't know that actually the Supreme Lord was sitting there amongst them whilst the festival was being performed. So these are exquisite pastimes of Shachi Dulal in Navadip Dham as described by Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. Ar ek kota shuno parama odbhut jay ranga korila prabhu jagannatha shut. Listen to another pastime. Extraordinary, Parama Adbhut, extremely extraordinary pastime. Jai Ranga Korila, in this way, Sachinandan performs his joyful pastimes, Jagannatha Shuta, in the house of Jagannath Mishra. And that wonderful pastime we'll share with you in the next session. Hare Krishna.